You know that feeling when you're in your mid-50s and you start thinking, I'm getting close. Time to play it safe. Time to protect what I've built. And that instinct makes perfect sense for most of your money. But here's what almost nobody tells you. There are 3 decisions people make at 55 that feel responsible, feel prudent, feel safe. And by 62, they realize those decisions cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. My name is Max, and over the last 15 years working with retirees, I've seen the same 3 mistakes destroy retirement plans that should have been bulletproof. The crazy part? These aren't reckless mistakes. These are mistakes that responsible, disciplined savers make because they think they're doing the right thing. And by the time they realize what happened, it's too late to fix it. Today I'm going to show you the 3 pension mistakes almost every retiree makes at 55 and why they regret them by 62. And if you stay until the end, I'll share the one question that will tell you whether you're making these mistakes right now. If you want to retire with flexibility, with options, with money that lasts, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Let's get into it. So many people reach their mid-50s and they think, you know what? I'm close to retirement. It's time to dial back the risk. And that instinct makes perfect sense for your regular retirement accounts, for the money you're going to need in the next 5 or 10 years. But the mistake happens when people apply that same logic to money they won't touch for decades. Which brings us to mistake number 1. Mistake number 1. Getting too conservative with your long-term money. This is the regret that sounds like this at 62. If I had just kept this invested for growth, I'd have so much more money today. I'd have so many more options. I wouldn't feel trapped. Here's what most people don't realize until it's too late. You don't need your entire portfolio on day 1 of retirement. In fact, if you're doing retirement correctly, there's a big chunk of money you shouldn't touch for 20 or 30 years, maybe longer. That money is not a day 1 of retirement asset. It's a what if I live to 90 asset. It's a what if my spouse needs long-term care asset. It's a what if I outlive my projections asset. And because you're not touching that money for decades, it should be invested for decades. Not for safety, for growth. But what do most people do at 55? They look at their entire portfolio and say, time to get conservative. They move everything into bonds, into cash, into stable value funds. And they think they're being smart. They think they're protecting themselves. Let me show you what that decision actually costs. Let's say you're 55 years old. You have $500,000 in your retirement accounts. You're planning to retire at 65. You figure you'll start drawing on this money around 67 or 68. And you've got a portion of your portfolio, let's say $200,000, that you realistically won't need to touch until you're in your late 70s or early 80s. That's 25 years away. Now, most people at 55 look at that $200,000 and say, I can't afford to lose this. I need to protect it. So they move it into bonds or a stable value fund earning maybe 3% per year. Safe, predictable, responsible. Over 25 years at 3%, that $200,000 grows to about $419,000. Not bad. You doubled your money. But here's the problem. If you had kept that $200,000 invested for growth, let's say in a diversified stock portfolio averaging 8% per year, that same $200,000 grows to $1.37 million. Same money, same time frame, different result. You just gave up $950,000 because you got conservative too early. And I know what you're thinking. But what if the market crashes? What if I lose half of it? Okay, Let's run that scenario. Let's say the market does crash. You lose 40% in year one. Your $200,000 drops to $120,000. Brutal, painful, scary. But then let's say it recovers and grows at 8% for the remaining 24 years. You know what you end up with? About $761,000. Even after a massive crash, you still end up with $342,000 more than the safe option. That's the power of time. That's the power of staying invested for growth when you have decades in front of you. Now, I'm not saying put all your money in aggressive growth stocks. I'm saying you need to match your investments to your timeline. Money you need in 5 years? Absolutely. Keep it safe. Money you need in 10 years? Balanced, moderate risk. But money you won't touch for 25 or 30 years? That money should be working hard. Because getting conservative too early doesn't protect you, it traps you. When retirees keep their long-term money invested for growth throughout their 50s and 60s, everything expands. More tax-free money in the future, more protection for a surviving spouse, more flexibility for healthcare costs, more legacy for the next generation. But when they shift everything to conservative investments too early, they cap that growth. They limit their options. And by 62, they realize they've locked themselves into a smaller retirement than they needed to have. So that's mistake number 1. Getting too conservative with money you won't touch for decades. Now, let's talk about mistake number 2. And this one is brutal because it's a window that only exists for a few years. And once it closes, it's gone forever. Mistake number 2. Missing the low-income window before age 63. This is the regret that sounds like this. I could have done so much more. I could have converted my retirement accounts at such a low tax rate. I could have saved hundreds of thousands in taxes. But I didn't know. Nobody told me. And now, it's too late. For many people, the years between 55 and 62 are the lowest income years of their entire adult life. Maybe you retired early. Maybe you switched to part-time. Maybe you're living off savings or taxable brokerage accounts while you let your retirement accounts grow. Whatever the reason, your taxable income during these years is often shockingly low compared to what it was during your working years, and compared to what it will be once Social Security and required minimum distributions kick in. And here's the kicker. These low-income years create a massive tax planning opportunity. But most people don't realize it exists until it's too late. Let me explain. In the U.S., once you turn 63, your income starts getting tracked by Medicare for something called IRMAA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. What that means is, starting at 63, if your income is too high, your Medicare premiums go up, sometimes a lot. And it's based on your income from 2 years prior. So when you're 65 and you start Medicare, they look at your income when you were 63. If it's above certain thresholds, you pay more, a lot more. But here's the thing. From 55 to 62, nobody's tracking your income for Medicare. Social Security hasn't started yet. Required minimum distributions haven't started yet. You're in this beautiful window where your income can be extremely low. And if you understand how to use this window, you can save a fortune in taxes over your lifetime. Let me give you some real numbers. I'm going to share a few anonymous examples from actual retirees, just like the ones I work with. These aren't theoretical. These are real tax returns. Example 2. Married couple, ages 61 and 63. Total income, $120,000. A bit more because they're doing Roth conversions, intentionally filling up the lower tax brackets. Their total federal tax bill? $11,800. Effective tax rate, 9.8%. They made $120,000 and paid less than $12,000 in federal taxes. Now, here's why this matters. These same couples, once they hit 65 and start Social Security, once they hit 73 and start required minimum distributions, their income is going to jump, and their tax rate is going to jump with it. Suddenly, but most, because the goal isn't to minimize taxes this year. The goal is to minimize taxes over your lifetime. And sometimes that means voluntarily paying taxes at 10% today to avoid paying taxes at 25% later. Now, you could just leave it at that. Pay the $3,500 and move on. Or you could do a Roth conversion. You could convert $40,000 from your traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. That brings your total taxable income up to $100,000. Now your federal tax bill is about $10,500. You just voluntarily paid an extra $7,000 in taxes. Most people would never do this. They'd say, "Why would I pay more taxes than I have to?" But here's the math. You just moved $40,000 from a traditional IRA, where it would eventually be taxed at your future rate, to a Roth IRA, where it will never be taxed again. And you pay. Every dollar you pull out of that IRA is getting taxed at 25%. That $40,000 you could have converted at 17.5%. It's now being taxed at 25%. You just gave up 7.5% to the government because you didn't act when you had the chance. And it compounds. Over the course of retirement, that decision to skip Roth conversions during the low-income years can cost you $100,000, $200,000, sometimes more in lifetime taxes. But here's the brutal part. Once you hit 63, that window slams shut. Because now, Medicare is tracking your income. If you do a big Roth conversion at 63, your Medicare premiums spike 2 years later. Suddenly, voluntarily paying taxes becomes way more expensive because you're also triggering higher premiums. The 55 to 62 window is the only time you have full control over your income without worrying about Medicare penalties. And most people don't realize this until it's too late. They get to 65, they start Medicare, they start seeing those premium bills, and they think, "Wait, why is this so high?" And someone explains IRMA to them, and they realize, "Oh, I should have done Roth conversions 5 years ago." But you can't go back. The window is closed. So that's mistake number 2, missing the low-income window between 55 and 62. Now let's talk about mistake number 3, and this one is painful because it's about spending the wrong money first. Mistake number 3, using your best money too early. This is the regret that sounds like this. I spent down the most valuable part of my portfolio way too early. I didn't know there was another option, and now I'm stuck. Here's the scenario. You retire at 55. Congratulations. You've saved aggressively. You've built a portfolio. You're ready to step away from work. But there's a problem. You're not 59 and a half yet, which means if you pull money from your retirement accounts, you're going to pay a 10% early withdrawal penalty on top of regular income taxes. So what do most people do? They look at their Roth IRA and think, "Well, I can pull my contributions out of the Roth anytime, tax-free, penalty-free. I'll just use that." And they start spending down their Roth. They pull out $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year, whatever they need to cover expenses until they hit 59 and a half. And in the moment, it feels like the right move. No taxes, no penalties, easy access. But here's what they don't realize. The Roth IRA is the most valuable money in their entire portfolio. It's tax-free forever. It grows tax-free. It comes out tax-free. You never pay taxes on it again, and they're spending it first. Let me put it this way. Imagine you have 2 bank accounts. One account, every time you pull money out, the government takes 25%. The other account, you can pull money out anytime, and the government takes nothing. Which account would you rather spend down first? Obviously, the one the government taxes. You'd want to preserve the tax-free account as long as possible, but that's not what people do. They spend the Roth first because it's easy, and by the time they hit 62, they realize they've drained one of the best assets they had. Now, here's what makes this even more frustrating. There's a rule that lets you avoid this mistake. It's called the Rule of 55. If you say not tax-free, you still pay income tax, but no 10% penalty. Which means if you retire at 55, you could pull money from your 401k to cover expenses, pay regular income tax, and leave your Roth IRA completely untouched to grow tax-free for the next 20 or 30 years. But most people never investigate whether their plan allows this. They assume the only penalty-free option is the Roth contributions, so that's what they use. And then because you can't get that time back. You can't undo those withdrawals. Let me show you what this costs in real numbers. Let's say fast forward to age 75. That $180,000 has grown to about $370,000, assuming 7% growth. Not bad. But now let's rewind. What if you hadn't touched the Roth? What if you'd used the Rule of 55 and pulled from your 401k instead? That $300,000 in the Roth stays untouched. By age 75, it's grown to about $617,000. And compare that to the 401k money you would have spent instead. Every dollar from the 401k gets taxed. So not only did you lose $247,000 in growth, you also lost the tax-free status of that money. But most people don't think about this. They see penalty-free access to Roth contributions, and they think, great, I'll use that. And by the time they realize the mistake, it's done. The money is spent. The growth is gone. Now, so you have to check with your employer. You have to look at your plan documents. You have to ask HR. And sometimes, if your plan doesn't allow it, you can push them to update the plan. So that's mistake number 3. Using your Roth money too early instead of leveraging the Rule of 55 or other penalty-free options. Now, let's step back. Because all 3 of these mistakes, getting too conservative with long-term money, missing the low-income window from 55 to 62, and spending your best money first, they all share the same root cause. The critical window, 55 to 62. You control how much income you recognize. You're not forced to take required minimum distributions yet. Social Security hasn't started yet. Medicare isn't tracking your income yet. You have complete flexibility to decide how much taxable income you want to show in any given year, and that flexibility is priceless. And then later comes. At 65, Medicare starts. At 73, required minimum distributions start. At that point, Social Security is probably already running. And suddenly, you have no control. The government is telling you how much income you have to recognize, and your tax bill goes up, and your Medicare premiums go up. And you look The retirees who understand this window, who use it correctly, they turn these years into a tax-free powerhouse. They do Roth conversions at historically low rates. They harvest capital gains at 0% tax. They position themselves so that when required minimum distributions start, those distributions are smaller because they've already moved money to Roth accounts. They set themselves up so that their Medicare premiums stay low because their income in retirement is controlled and predictable. They create flexibility that lasts for the rest of their lives. But the retirees who ignore this window, who spend these years doing nothing, they arrive at 65 with fewer options, higher taxes, and way less flexibility. And the regret is real, because they can't go back. They can't undo it. The window is gone. So let me give you the one question I promised at the beginning, the question that tells you whether you're making these mistakes right now. Here it is. Does your current tax rate feel like a good deal? That's it. That's the whole question. Not, should I do a Roth conversion? Not, should I move money around? Just, does your current tax rate feel like a good deal? If you're paying 10% in total taxes on your income right now, does that feel like a good deal compared to what you might pay later? If you're paying 15%, does that feel like a good deal? Because if it does, if you look at your tax rate and think, yeah, I'd be happy to lock this in forever, then you should be doing something. You should be filling up those low brackets. You should be converting to Roth. You should be harvesting gains. But if you're not doing anything, if you're just coasting through these years, waiting for retirement to officially start, you're making the mistakes. You're getting too conservative with money you don't need yet. You're missing the low-income window. You're spending the wrong money first. And by the time you hit 62, you're going to wish you could rewind the clock. Now, I know this is a lot. I know it's complicated. I know it's not the kind of thing you can just figure out on your own in an afternoon. And that's okay. This is what I do. This is what I help people with every single day. If you want help building a retirement plan that takes advantage of the 55 to 62 window, that positions you to pay the least amount of taxes over your lifetime, that gives you flexibility and options and control, click the link below and book a call with me. We'll look at your situation. We'll show you exactly what you should be doing, and we'll build a plan that actually works. Until next time, my name is Max. I hope this video helps you avoid the 3 biggest mistakes retirees make at 55, and I'll see you in the next one.